Hello, in this video we'll take a look at Unit 4, Activity 4. It is entitled Summing It Up. And for the last time this semester, you'll take a rough draft and you'll edit it, revise it, and submit a polished version for me to grade. And so if we take a look, this activity doesn't have much to it. It's just here providing you an overview of the polished assignment and a Dropbox to submit your final assignment of Activity 4. So if we take a look, it says Summing It Up. In the final activity of Unit 4, you will edit and revise a rough draft one last time this semester, when you polish your series of paragraphs on coding from the previous activity in Unit 4, Activity 3. So in Activity 3, you should have submitted a first draft, and that first draft should have contained 5 paragraphs explaining your opinion on coding in education. I will provide feedback on that draft, and you will then edit and revise that draft and submit me a polished version. So if we take a look at the steps to complete your polished draft, it says, after receiving feedback from me on your first draft, complete the following steps. Number 1, revise your first draft, ensuring that your opinion is clearly expressed and effectively supported. One last time, I'll try to explain the difference between revising and editing. So when we say revise your first draft, you're making sure that your points are being stated clearly and that you're effectively supporting yourself. What you're doing when you're revising is you're checking your language use, you're checking your structure, you're checking sort of the overall parts of your assignment and making sure that they are clearly expressing what you want to express. So once you've done that, you then can move on to step 2, which is edit your series of paragraphs. And when we're talking about editing, we're talking about checking for spelling, grammar, and punctuation errors. So certainly make sure you're using a spell check or a grammar check, or you could use the online Grammarly program. But you definitely want to check your final assignment here in Unit 4 to make sure that you don't have spelling and grammar errors. And then finally, step 3, do a final check and make sure that you have all of the requirements in your assignment. So we're going to run through this. You need an introduction paragraph, which establishes your opinion on whether coding should be taught to all students. So in your introduction, I should clearly see your opinion on this topic. You should then have 3 body paragraphs, and each one should explain one supporting reason. And in each of those body paragraphs, you're going to include supporting detail. And those supporting details should use at least 3 different methods of proof. We talked about methods of proof in 3 different activities in Unit 4, so I'm hoping you're getting used to using them. One of those methods of proof that you're going to use is a quotation or paraphrase from one of the articles in Activity 3, that is. And then you're going to make sure to put an in-text citation after any quotations or paraphrases that you include. You're going to have a concluding paragraph which summarizes your overall opinion. And you're going to have a full reference for any articles that you used as research or as any articles that you took quotations or paraphrases from. You're going to include references after your conclusion. You're going to make sure that you include complete sentences, that you use correct spelling and punctuation, and that aside from the quotations from the articles that you've used, that everything else is written in your own words. Once you're comfortable with all of these requirements, you can submit your final polished series of paragraphs to the Dropbox right here. You can also click right here to access the rubric and to see how your polished series of paragraphs will be graded. One last point I'll bring up, and I mentioned this in Activity 3, but if we go back to Activity 3 for a minute. Before you submit your polished series of paragraphs, what I would definitely recommend that you do is to review the if it opens for me here. Is to review the series of paragraphs expressing an opinion sample here. So if you go back to activity 3, and this was about how cats make excellent house pets. So your polished series of paragraphs is, of course, on a very different topic, but it should look structurally very similar to this. You should have an introduction, about 3 body paragraphs, right? A conclusion paragraph. You should have at least 1 quotation and citation inside your series of paragraphs, and that quotation and citation should be from one of the articles that you read. So, for example, it could be from this article here, Teaching Children to Code Overview. And then you should have references for any articles that you referenced, that you quoted or paraphrased inside your paragraphs. So I would just do a double check before submitting your final series of paragraphs. Make sure that you're using the proper structure and that your 5 paragraphs are doing what they're supposed to do. Okay. With that said, again, when you're happy with your series of paragraphs, you can submit it for grading right here. And one last bit here, you've got learning skills reflection. So at the ending of this unit, at the ending of Unit 4, they're just going to ask you to put your first name, your last name, and the course code, which for our case would be OLC4O, and then hit start. And it's going to ask you a couple of questions about the learning skills that you hopefully developed in this unit. It's just kind of a reflection for yourself. You're not being graded on this, but it's just a check to make sure that you learned what you were supposed to learn in Unit 4. And with that, you're done Unit 4. If you have any questions, please let me know.